Just a little, so it gets a little clearer.
Yeah, it's a little clear, yeah.
All right, guys, what's up? Welcome to a little surprise live stream. As you can see behind us, we are giving away a bunch of potatoes with the real 3%ers of Idaho today. How do we address? Are you running for sheriff?
Running for sheriff,
Rick Whitehead, running for sheriff of Kootenai County. He popped in today, wanted to help out, and so we thought, let's open this up to you guys to ask some questions of Rick Whitehead.
Excellent.
So you guys can go ahead, start asking them. As soon as you see them, we'll read them. But I've got a couple to ask you. I let some people know that we're going to be talking to you, so they had a couple preemptive questions.
Okay, excellent.
So one of the issues I think a lot of people are worried about are red flag laws. So why don't you explain red flag laws, and then as a sheriff, how you would handle it?
Red flag laws are what's been commonly used across the country, to where if I was Chad's neighbor, and you know how wacko Chad is, I would call in and say, my neighbor's wacko and he's got guns and I'm scared. And then that law enforcement agency drafts a document, seizes his weapons and goes without his permission or know-how and seizes his weapons. That is denying him his due process rights that are guaranteed in our constitutions and the freedoms we're given by God. For me, I would not enforce the red flag laws like that. If somebody lets Chad being wacko, then if Chad did display those issues, then we would subpoena him to a trial of some sort, a mental health trial if he wants, and then only after that, if he's deemed a danger, would his guns be seized, but not until he gets a chance to defend himself.
So how does that work in the case of like there's like an extreme risk protection order?
Protection order.
How does that work? And then how do those sort of coincide? Is not a red flag law, or are they a red flag law?
Those are a red flag law. It's kind of the cow nose under the tent, the extreme risk. Unless that gun has been deemed part of that risk, just because you own them doesn't mean it's any part of the risk. So they're overstepping their bounds saying that's an extreme risk protection order. If we need to separate you from your spouse because you guys are having trouble, then okay, then the order can do that. But unless you displayed a weapon and threatened her with that, we got no business touching your weapons. There's no indication you're going to use them. They're presuming you're guilty of going to use your weapon before you've had the chance to defend yourself, and that's overstepping.
So as sheriff, you will not be enforcing any red flag laws.
Correct. Absolutely.
What are some things that you are running on that you'd like to tell people you want them to know about the, possible Kootenai County Sheriff coming up?
Well, today, in the last several weeks, are a perfect example of what I'm running on. The governor has decided to edict himself king using several statutes to do that I don't think the legislators knew at the time in writing those statutes how they would be used to their detriment. But in that, we now have King Little, who is treating us like his subjects, telling us where we can leave, where we can go, if we can leave our house, where we can go. We can't go to restaurants, can't go to parks. You just did a video about parks. That is completely unconstitutional and illegal. And I think in the end, all that's going to be proven as such, but right now we're living through that. Your sheriff in Bonner County is not enforcing that order. County Sheriff Kramer is not enforcing that order. If I was sheriff of Kootenai County today, I would not be enforcing that order, and you could have been sitting in restaurants from day one.
That's important, guys. Understanding where the law of the land, the law of the county, where they are going to enforce these things, not enforce these things based off of whether or not they're constitutional, is very important. You could get a sheriff in like we have right now at Kootenai County. They've been ticketing people for this. They have been threatening to quarantine people from out of state. All of that stuff is illegal. You can't do that. So to have a sheriff coming up saying that he's not going to do that, having that working together with our sheriff up in Bonner County, that creates a great team for the Panhandle. And that's very important. So that's why we sat down today with Rick, to be able to give you guys kind of exposure to how he sees it, because, in the end, the Constitution is all important.
And your sheriff and I are friends, and it'll give the North Idaho kind of a constitutional stronghold if I get elected.
Absolutely. He endorsed you, correct?
Well, being elected, you can't, but
okay.
But we're friends, and I'll
wink,
leave
wink.
it there.
Right? Wink, wink, guys. We've got some good leaders up here stepping up. We've got some people up here that need to step away. So we like Rick for Sheriff of Kootenai County.
I have encouraged Sheriff Wolfinger not to enforce this order to no avail.
And that's another reason why we sat down. I've actually seen Rick at a couple of, not parades, protest demonstrations. He's been out here and he's been vocal since the beginning, shouting the Constitution, standing on it. And that's what, that's what every patriot should be backing, is anyone who's going to stand up and enforce the Constitution, and not just some edict from the governor who's just making it up.
From day one of this lockdown order, I've said it's unconstitutional and illegal. My competitors, all of my competitors, were either silent or agreed that it was necessary, and have only as late as the stats have proved that it is a bunch of nothing, have they said, well, maybe we should, open up.
We're seeing a lot of that where they're jumping on the bandwagon after it's a safe move to do it.
They like to put their finger in the wind and see which way the wind's blowing, and that's the answer you'll get. And then when the wind changes, you'll get a different answer. From day one, I've said this is unconstitutional and illegal and would not enforce it.
We like it. Okay, guys, let me scroll up here and see if we got any questions. If you guys are just getting in here, we got a potato giveaway going on behind us.
A lot of good bakers. Come get you some.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on down. Kootenai County, if you're in here, get yourself some potatoes. If you guys have a question for Rick, let us know. Rick Whitehead, running for Sheriff of Kootenai County.
SheriffRick.com is the website.
All right, we don't got a bunch of questions. We got a bunch of comments. Let's see here. Okay, I'll ask the questions. That's fine, guys. So one of the big events that have taken place in North Idaho, kind of, the historical events, is Ruby Ridge.
Right.
How, as a sheriff, what is your role in something like that where feds decide to come in? What's the sheriff's role?
As a strong sheriff, or if you have a strong sheriff, you do not end up with a Ruby Ridge. You don't end up with a Finicum. You don't end up with a Bundy if you have a strong sheriff. If the Fed wants to come into the county, then as the sheriff is the constitutional officer of the county, basically. And I can shut the Fed down and say, no, you're not doing that. Or if you're going to do that, then you're going to do it this way. And if you're not going to do it this way, then you're not going to do it at all. And you can leave our county.
So the sheriff has the ability to kick them out at any time?
Yes.
Okay.
The sheriff is the constitutional officer. The sheriff position is set up in the state constitution. The city law enforcement, federal, none of those are in the Constitution. Those are all created with statutes afterwards, and the sheriff trumps all that.
It's a good answer, guys. It's an important answer. We've seen time and time again, unfortunately, where the feds have come in, they're heavy-handed, and they wind up killing people who aren't their neighbors. When you're from an area, you're less likely to kill your neighbors. That's just how it is. You live in this community, you're from this community. I think it provides for better policing.
And the feds will come in and try to bully the sheriff or the law enforcement as the federal authority. And the strong sheriff knows that's just a bluff and can push them back.
All right, guys, let's see if we got a question. Will you repeal, let's see, Fluffy Panda would like to know, will you repeal the NFA in your county, Safe Hearing Act for Idaho? So I think we're talking about suppressors.
The suppressors are illegal in Idaho. I don't understand the question.
Because
Suppressors.
you got to permit them. So being that they shouldn't be permitted.
Well, you shouldn't have to have a permit to carry a gun or get a concealed carry permit. As sheriff, I'm still going to issue concealed carry permits because other states require them. Although Idaho does not require any permits, you can carry open or concealed in Idaho. But people still need that permit to get into other states. Can I repeal that? No, I can't repeal it, but I can not enforce it, not worry about it.
So if let's say someone is arrested then in your county by feds for having a suppressor, is that out of your jurisdiction then?
If it is a federal crime and they arrest them then I can refuse them in our jail or not take them.
Okay.
The sheriff runs the jail.
Okay. I don't know if that answers your question, Fluffy Panda, but
now, Fluffy Panda, I gotta say, that's kind of, I don't want to insinuate anything, but that name kind of goes with where we're at in society today. It kind of makes me nervous.
Don't judge these guys by their names. There's some bad ones and they're good people.
I'm just having fun.
Let's see, question about short barrel rifles.
I'm not worried about any of that stuff. In
Rich-
fact, our legislature in 2015 passed legislation that says any executive order or any other gun law that comes out of D.C. is null and void in Idaho. So it doesn't make a difference what they do in D.C. in reference to guns. It doesn't matter in Idaho anymore.
We like our potatoes fried in Tennessee, says Charles Horton.
With a little onion.
Fantastic. You guys are doing a horrible job asking questions.
Putting all the pressure on Chad.
Yeah, lots of good comments though. Will you fight unconstitutional laws from the governor? So you're getting in a little late, but let's catch some people up.
Absolutely. This unconstitutional lockdown we're in right now, I would not enforce. And that's the key. That is the linchpin to the whole thing is without enforcement, this order is nothing. If all of law enforcement would stand up and say, that is against the oath of our office, we're not enforcing that, then his orders are worthless. They're just a piece of paper. Where he gets any grip and traction at all is by the enforcement, whether it's through law enforcement or the heads of the agencies that license beauticians and stuff like that. If all of those people would stand down, especially law enforcement would stand down, then this order would be worthless.
So we got a good one, and this was actually a pre-question I got as well. Felons and guns. So you are afforded the right to bear arms in this country, yet we've come up with basically a law saying that if you get a felony at some point in your life, you now do not get to bear arms anymore. What's your take on that?
My take is if you serve your time, if you're a felon, whatever crime you did, if you serve your time and your debt is paid, then all your rights should be restored, including firearms and voting should be restored. Once you've paid your debt, why are they still holding things back from you? That's not right.
Now, is that federal, or is that something as a sheriff you can help to bring about in the state?
It's something I would politic to undo in the state.
Okay. So is that state by state then, or is that a federal law that we all sort of adhere to?
I think it's a federal thing, but I would push on the state level to back that off.
So that's something that can be done. Idaho could say if you're a felon, you can own firearms after you've served your time. That's a doable thing.
Well, kind of like the suppressor thing. In Idaho, you can have suppressors, and you don't have to,
Yeah.
And as long as you're in Idaho, you can, kind of works the same way.
Okay. Gypsy says, Rick, you ever think about running for president?
This sheriff race has been pretty ugly. I can't imagine. Well, actually, I don't imagine it getting any uglier running for president. But no, I think my wife would use one of my extra weapons around the house to do me in if I said I was going to run for president.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine all that TV time, all the slander. It gets dirty.
It's amazing. That's the one part I was naive about is thinking, running for a county race in Idaho, how bad can it get? It's been educational on how ugly it can get. And that's been staggering to me. The hypocrisy in that is I have competitors that are seeking the highest office in the county and using the low tactic to get there. Isn't there a little hypocrisy in that?
I think that shows a lot on someone's character.
Absolutely.
I think anytime that you're trying to sell yourself to people, you should be talking about what you do. You should be talking yourself up and not putting other people down. But we see the dirtiest of the dirt in politics, and it's like stepping onto a sixth grade playground. It's pretty embarrassing, really, to see adults and then as well as our political leaders turn to that.
To seek the highest office and use those tactics. And I told them from day one, I have the credentials for this job and I'll run on my credentials. If you want to get in the mud, you'll be there by yourself.
Absolutely. We had a good question. Din Jardin, I butcher his name every time, a D next to a J. How do you deal with contact tracers?
At my house, we're going to refuse them. I'm not going to open the door. And if I accidentally open the door and it is one, I'm going to say, sorry, I'm not participating and shoo them away.
And so
I will not comply.
What about enforcement? As a sheriff, would you allow these people to come in too? Well, because they're going to use you.
No.
They're going to use your guys to enforce.
No, as sheriff, we're not participating in any of the contract tracing, anything that has to do with this fake COVID thing. I think COVID is a thing, but it's a flu strain. We have flu every year, and this year it's proved that the regular flu's killed more than COVID has, so let's get real. But anyway, the government does not have the right to say, we're going to do this and lock everybody down. You've been denied due process. They have what we expect out of government is, here's the threat, here's what we suggest you do about it, and then it's our decision to decide what we want to do to keep our family safe, as it's your decision to decide what you want to do to keep your family safe. We will not enforce anything that has anything to do with that. And those aren't all anyway. Those are rules being pushed down by health districts that are being enforced as laws, which is not legal.
Justin says he's a patriot.
Thank you, Justin.
Timothy T says only a fool wouldn't vote for him.
Tell all your friends in Kootenai County it's happening right now.
Let's see here, guys. Questions. Federal law, I'm a felon. We covered the felon topic, which is a good topic, actually. That was brought to my attention last night, and I never really thought about it, but
You've paid
it's
your
definitely
dues.
an overstep.
You've paid your dues. You should get your rights back. You've paid your debt. Get your rights back. Probably the only exception I would hold on that is if you were convicted on a homicide of some type, and then maybe not. But that would be the I'm kind of stuck there. But
Okay.
But if you didn't get life in prison or you didn't get death penalty for whatever, you killed somebody and you did 15 or 20 years, you still killed somebody. Okay, maybe let's talk about it.
Maybe something on repeat offenders as well.
Yeah, if a repeat offender, then maybe we'll hold that extra carrot out. But you can get a felony for driving without driving with a suspended license if you get caught 3 times. Why should that keep you from owning a firearm because you drive without a license? Really?
And it doesn't make you a violent person.
No.
WD something, man. Sorry, I missed your name. Military experience. MD Lawman says any background in military.
At 18 years old, I went in the Army as a military policeman and served 3 years. After that, I grew up in Ellsworth, Missouri. Went in the Army. After the Army, ended up in Texas. I worked for a suburb of Houston as a policeman for 5.5 years. I moved to Austin, Texas, to the Sheriff's Department there, worked the next 25 years, promoted up through the rank of captain. I've led every aspect of the agency. I've written and implemented $85 million budgets. There's no part of this job I haven't done or would do again and led. So you got 3 years in the Army.
Okay.
25 years business experience parallel. I started a training company in the 90s. I recognized a training need in the agency I was in. I designed a training program for them. That grew legs outside the agency, so I started a training company. So I've got 25 years of business experience. I train internationally in law enforcement, leadership. Local agencies around here use training programs I've designed. So I've got the business experience as well as law enforcement experience.
So you guys just coming in, we're giving away potatoes again. We got two truck beds and a dump trailer full of potatoes. So we're helping to fill that void, giving away free potatoes. We're helping to give back to the farmer.
Collecting money for the farmers.
Yeah, he's getting everything that we can raise. So people are coming in, donating, and they're taking some food back to their family and neighbors, which has been very successful. We've done this 3 weeks in a row now. Empty trucks every time. We're sitting down with Rick Whitehead. He's running for sheriff of Kootenai County. He was here helping out. He's been involved in some other
Rallies,
political stuff, but he's out with the people, guys. He's the voice that we're looking for. He's been standing on the Constitution the entire time, so I was happy to sit down with him. Not that it's anything special, but I think he deserved an interview, and I didn't want to get involved in any of this kind of stuff, but he's there waving flags with us, marching down the streets and stuff too, so I'm happy to sit down with him. So if you guys have any questions for him, he's in the middle of a dirty race, but he's in it. Go ahead and ask, and we'll see if we can answer some questions.
and I very much appreciate this opportunity, Chad.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you implement a program to teach kids about their rights as well as firearm safety? That's a good question.
I would love for the SROs to, we need to be in more schools because that's a great way for the kids to realize that the police people do.
What's SRO?
School resource officer. So have more cops in the schools to interact with the kids so they see the cops as people, and then have those officers that are in the schools teach classes on the Constitution, teach civics as part of their duty. That's a great way to do it.
It would be great. We all know that the public school system is struggling, guys. I wasn't even taught the Constitution coming up through school, ever.
I don't remember being.
Which is ridiculous. It's all we should be taught every year, at least.
Yes. But outside of that, yes, Explorer programs, scouting, Explorer programs, stuff like that. There's another, I can't think of the name of it, but there's another parallel program ran through the churches that's like scouting. those are excellent places to teach civics and Constitution.
And firearm safety too is, that's something that used to get taught in school. Not in my day, but that's something that used to be taught in school, and I think that's very important. Whether your kid has access to firearms, a lot of times when kids come to people's houses, they now have access to firearms, whether they do or not at home. So exposing them to that, that could save a lot of lives.
It could.
It would be a good program.
It removes the curiosity. If they are familiar with it and know the good and the bad, then if they stumble across it, it's remove the curiosity about it.
Public schools, some struggling. Plan to fight police unions when firing bad cops. There's a good question.
We don't have a union at the sheriff's office, so that is a problem with unions, and why I have avoided them throughout my career is because it's more about the position and the job than it is the doing the right thing. So luckily in Kootenai County, we do not have a police union to worry about. Now, in that, I'm a firm believer that everybody in the agency works under just cause. Just if I'm the new sheriff, I can't come in and fire everybody just because they didn't like me, or if I didn't like them or whatever, they didn't part their hair right today. That's not right either. Every position's a just cause position.
Big Steve says, Chad, where are you guys at? We are at Heart of the City Church in Kootenai County. What's that? This is Kathleen?
Yes.
Off Kathleen. Come on down, get some
between
potatoes.
95 and Ramsey.
Somebody asked if you were sheriff, what would you do different than most sheriffs?
Well, one, I wouldn't be enforcing this lockdown order. Two, in Kootenai County, the agency has been woefully neglected for decades. The attitude from the administration is, if you don't like it here, leave. Well, that's no way to treat people. People quit bosses, they don't quit jobs. So the way I live my life, and the way I would run my agency is, you treat everybody the way you want to be treated in like circumstances. So if I have to write you a ticket, then how would I want to receive that ticket? Or if I have to put you in jail, then how would I want to go to jail? But that's writing tickets in jail is not all it's about. If there's a way to solve the problem without any of those things, that's great. But that's the difference. The sheriff's department here will be run is, you treat people the way you would want to be treated in like circumstances. The agency an ambassador to the county, to where people feel free and comfortable interacting with the agency instead of, I got a police car behind me.
Let's see, Marcus G says, what is your policy on law enforcement not being held accountable for blatant acts against citizens, like limited immunity?
Limited immunity comes with a job for if you make a honest mistake. In being in this profession, if you make an honest mistake, then you have immunity. But if you overstep your bounds and you do your job improperly, intentionally, then I'm all about being held accountable for that.
Someone asked, let's see here. Oh, going back to what Rick was saying earlier too, about how a lot of the sheriff's deputies quit the sheriff, essentially, or the office. We're also very, very much lower paid than just Spokane. So a lot of guys get hired here and then they're out to go to Spokane for a higher paying job. How is that? How can we mitigate that so that we get good quality people here and we're not just a training ground for the other departments?
And that's what Kootenai County has become, is a training agency for everybody else. And for everybody we bring in, and then they leave a year, 2, 3 years later, we've invested at least $100,000 that just went out the door. And last year, that was almost $2 million worth of people that came and left that we've wasted. So part of the solution is getting in the same ballpark with the pay. You can't always do that, depending on the expenses at the county, the tax base at the county. You need to try to be in the ballpark. But when you ask employees, pay is usually never number one of their concerns. It is that intrinsic part of us that wants to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to work for a place that I am proud to be a part of and represent. And having a culture in the agency of being appreciated as a member of that agency, as part of the family, pushes that intrinsic button to where people will put up with a lot if they feel like they're appreciated. So that is the first thing I've got to do, is let everybody in the sheriff's office know I appreciate what they do and how they serve. And then if I can get you in the ballpark with money, great. But if I can't, I can't. But you're appreciated for what you're doing.
So we had a question about constitutional militia. So you're sitting here with 3% of Idaho, right?
Right.
What's the sheriff's relationship to the militias in the area? And then basically, what is the militia's role with the sheriff? And then what's your take on it?
Should be support. One of the things, I've been very active with the militias and the 3% because militia has a bad stigma to it that's I don't want to go into, but all these groups are patriots that want constitutional limited government, which is what we should all want. And as the sheriff, that's what I want. And I plan on immediately, if not before I take over, sit down with all these groups. And in North Idaho, you can't throw a rock without getting a retired cop.
It's true.
So between getting, the retired cops that want to be interested, the 3%ers, the militias, all the patriot people around, to sit down and have a meeting with them and say, look, I'm going to put together a sheriff's posse, which as a sheriff, I have the right to do under posse comitatus. I don't even have to ask. I can just say, you're going to go work for me today because I need your help.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that.
I get a badge or what?
Yep, you get a badge for as long as you're
I'm in.
helping. It's kind of like the cowboy movies in the old days. You're part of the posse. I plan on putting together a list of having basically a ready posse. So if we have some unimaginable event here and I need a bunch of people, flip of a switch and a phone call, I can get all the people I need to handle that event until it's done.
That's fantastic. That's something that I don't even think is recognized or even kind of thought of and done by law enforcement in this area. And and up here we deal with wildfire. It's a very big issue up here, and that's something where us volunteer citizens essentially can really help out in a quick moment's notice. So we like that.
And having a recall list to say, hey, Chad, up in your area, 10 acres away, you got a fire. Can you take your four-wheeler and get over there and help them out, or whatever it is? Or direct traffic for me until we get a deputy up there. Whatever. We got to work together. We're our brother's keeper.
And guys, sitting here as part of the 3%, it's nice to just even be recognized. The fact that he's going to come down here and associate himself with us.
I'm proud to come sit with you.
We're happy to have you. There's many people who won't. They won't talk to us. They don't want to associate with us, and it just kind of shows that mindset of where they're kind of buying that media hype about the name.
The current sheriff has labeled me extremist because I'm constitutional and hang out with you guys.
Yeah, it's an odd concept, right? Like we want to respect the Constitution, and that makes us an extremist.
You want the government to respect the Constitution, and that makes you an extremist. Well, that's a proud list I'm proud to be on.
Yeah, well, we're happy to see the current sheriff take a hike. Let's see here, guys. We've got we're 27 minutes in, so let's get a couple more questions in, and then we're going to end this. Looks like we're picking up back here too, which is cool.
We got to go to work.
Yeah. Someone's voting for you from Oregon. That doesn't help, but we like it.
To vote cross state like that, you got to be a Democrat.
Or dead.
Or dead.
Or both.
My grandma was a lifelong Republican. She's been voting Democrat ever since she died.
Boy, not a lot of questions, just a bunch of comments.
Good comments. Excellent.
We answered some questions. Good.
If you're in Kootenai County or know people in Kootenai County, if they haven't voted, tell them to get their ballot and vote. I need everyone.
What if I don't want to be governed and I want to be left alone in peace?
That's exactly how we all want to live, is to be left alone. We're a lot like horses. That's what horses are. Horses will behave you or do what you want because they want you to leave them alone. So leave us alone, and we're happy. And that's how government should work.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, one more, and then we're going to get out of here. Do you believe in the non-aggression principle?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, but from some videos I've seen where, the video you did at Sandpoint with the player, those guys came across some kind of an attitude. It started. So
it didn't have to start like that.
Right. They came so the non-aggression part, I'm all about that. Our job is supposed to be 97% verbal and 3% physical. But kind of a default position in law enforcement across the country these days is us versus them. And I abhor that response. We are our brother's keeper. We're all in this together. You got a job, I got a job. We're supposed to be taking care of each other. And being aggressive or being rude is completely uncalled for.
All right, guys. So that is it. We're at the 30-minute mark. We're gonna get out of here. So, Rick, if there's anything else that you want to say, go ahead. I'll let you sign us off.
SheriffRick.com is my website. You can find me on Facebook, Rick Whitehead, or Richard Whitehead for Sheriff on Facebook if you want to find me there. My email's on the website, my phone number's on the website. If you got any other questions, feel free to reach out. I'll answer any question you got.
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one. All right, bye-bye.